Dodge, Burn and Sponge. These three tools are great for adding detail to an image, making certain elements pop. Before we get started, I want to show you how you can protect your original image and work in an optimal fashion. Remember, the goal is to work non-destructively wherever possible. First, we're going to create a new layer from this icon here. Next, we'll press Shift F5 to get this window. Alternatively, you can go to Window, Edit, Fill. From this drop-down, we'll select 50% grey. This looks a mess, but we're not done. Finally, we'll go to the top of the Layers panel and choose Overlay from the blending mode. Now it seems this layer has disappeared, but it's actually still there. This allows us to use the Dodge and Burn tools without permanently affecting the original image. We can also create several layers like this, one for each component of the image, or one for dodging and one for burning. It's up to you how far you want to take it. Right, now we'll get started with the Dodge tool. In essence, this lightens things up, while the Burn tool darkens things. As you can see, the effect is pretty obvious, and that's because we have its intensity turned up. We can adjust that by lowering its exposure. Currently, it's set at 50%. Remember to always use very small values in order to get a nice result. Anything too obvious is not going to cut it. I'd say you can go with 10 to 20% in most cases, and always have Protect Tones checked. For this tutorial, depending on the device you're viewing it on and the quality of your internet, you might not see all the details, so I'm going to exaggerate them quite a bit. Please keep that in mind. Okay, in general, you want to lighten those areas that already have some light on them, but not enough. I'd like to get more focus on the teeth in this case, so I'll paint over them and I'll constantly adjust my brush size with the square bracket keys. I'm clicking several times to compound the effect. It's better to do that with a low intensity rather than cranking it up from the beginning. You may notice I'm changing the range from time to time, and that's because this gives you better results. To learn them, it's quite easy. Highlights target the brightest parts, midtones are in the middle, and of course shadows affect the darkest parts the most. Both the Dodge and Burn tool have the same options. I can focus on their nose and a little bit on the forehead. I can take my time with it. If this was a serious project, you'd have to spend at least 30 minutes on it, otherwise it's just playing around. I can focus on other parts too, like the cheek or the eyes, but I think you get the idea. I'll speed it up just a bit, but I won't show you the before and after. That's because you usually don't notice how much things have changed unless you toggle the visibility. Of course, when you're working on a real project, you have to do that, but here I'd like to surprise you. So let's say this is done, even though it's quite sloppy work, bear that in mind. Next, for the Burn tool, we can focus on the eyebrows for sure. That's a great place to start. We can also target the scalp in those sensitive parts. And again, this takes time and refinement. It's something I suggest you work your way up. Make some adjustments on your own photos where you can barely tell the difference. The goal is to show it to somebody without them noticing it's been worked on in Photoshop. Then work your way up. The lips also can be a bit brightened up, so I'm going to use the Burn tool on them as well. Midtones is probably the best setting here. Okay, let's move things along. I'd like to show you the Sponge tool last. For this tool, I'll work on the original layer. It has two settings, Desaturate and Saturate. You should leave Vibrance checked because it helps with the effect. Regarding flow, we already talked about it, you should have it at a low setting, but here I'm going for something dramatic. Okay, Saturate. I'd like to further improve the lips, and as you can see, the impact is very powerful. This is why I keep emphasizing subtlety. For example, look what happens when I use it too much on the blonde girl's hair. It looks terrible. Let me go back a few steps to undo that. Okay, so I can use it on the eyes too, just a bit, and, well, I could spend a lot of time on the hair, but I think you get the idea. For the Desaturate option, here we don't have that many places to use it, but in general it's used on the background. You want the model to stand out, so one of the ways of doing that is to mute the background. Here I can focus on her blouse more than the background to illustrate how it works. Okay, these are the Dodge, Burn and Sponge tools. I absolutely love them, and I think they're one of the best tools for touching up portraits in a natural way. Ready to see the difference? There you go. Now, I know you might be saying, wow, that looks worse than the original, but I went completely overboard with it. You can tell from a mile that's been photoshopped, but if you work patiently and with low settings, you'll get a much better result. Speaking of which, that's your next exercise. You have this image attached and I want to see how you do. On the first go, take your time to learn the tools. Do exactly as I did, exaggerate. Then do it properly with low settings and fine adjustments. When you're done, post a screenshot in the comments section. Have fun!